am Negan.
I am Negan.
What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast. My name is Adam Vale. I'm an editor over at the Koalition.com, and today I am flying solo. That's right. Richard Bailey Jr. is out on location, traveling around. We got a lot of events and stuff going on over at the Koalition, so he's out taking care of a site business. But it's all right. It's all right, because I'm holding it down for this episode, and this episode, This was frustrating, people. This was very frustrating. If you haven't watched it, which by now everyone should have watched it, quick little housekeeping. We were trying to, as you know, we were trying to see if we can set this up so we can do it live, and we had all these plans and this whole big to-do, and then some travel things happened, and of course it's life, right? Things happen, and you got to move around the schedule, so it didn't happen. And now we're a little bit late, see, because of this whole situation. But it's all right, because we're going to break it down and just going to give my thoughts, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably the same opinions and thoughts regarding fear, and of course this final episode this is season 7, episode 16, Gone. So quick thanks to everybody over on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube for the follows and all that. It's always good. Fine. You know, there's so many people that I talk to that are like, oh, you still do that Walking Dead podcast? You still, yeah. Oh, is that still going? It baffles me because, as you know, and I know, millions of people still watch the show. But I guess out in for the masses, for the casuals, TV watchers out there, this has fallen off. And some may argue everything fell off once Glenn died. They just could not deal with that. If you guys remember that whole fiasco, that people just went bonkers. They're like, how dare they do it? They took it to the next level. Oh, because he's Asian, whole thing. He was Asian in the comics too. This is something that has happened. It wasn't out of spite. It wasn't out of shock. I mean, that's a whole other episode. I think we already talked about that a few years back. But anyway, the point is, yes, Walking Dead's still going. We have a few more spin-offs coming up. I think we have one in August. I think there was Tales of the Walking Dead is about to kick off in August. And that's going to be on AMC and AMC Plus, which is cool. Looking forward to that. And of course we have all the other spin-offs that are coming down. Isle of the Dead, which is the one with Maggie and Negan. We have the anthology, Walking Dead anthology. I think that's the one with Terry Crews. Could be wrong. Could be the other one. But regardless, another one coming. So there's a lot going on in this universe, which is why for years we've been covering Walking Dead, because we knew it. We knew it was going to happen. What we did not know, people, is that we were going to see a dramatic drop in quality when it comes to Fear the Walking Dead. This has been one of our favorites. Mine, Richard, we tried to get Carlos from the main show. He's like, I don't know, maybe. But for a majority of people, when you think about spin-offs, most of the time they're a miss. But this one was a hit. This one really caught on. There was a lot going on here. They didn't just revert back to a lot of the same tropes that we saw at Walking Dead proper. They brought new locations, new cast, new attitudes. One of the things that we've talked about in chat rooms and discussions of like, oh, this isn't that realistic. Where's the person who's addicted to drugs? Or this isn't. Well, they had that. They brought that. They introduced that character who eventually got killed off. That was one of Clark's, Madison Clark's, the son. I'm blanking on his name, but it'll come to me. But you guys remember that when that happened. Nick, there you go. They threw a lot of different characters that we usually don't see, or I should say we have not seen on The Walking Dead proper, which is great. And it was fun. And look, even this season, we were super hyped. Last season we had the cult. That was awesome. Then we had the nukes. That was even better. And here we are now. We were season 7. Everything is radioactive. You got radioactive walkers. You got everybody walking around in like hazmat suits and living that life. It was amazing. It was different. And then it just fell downhill. This whole thing with the tower never really escalated, never really materialized into any big brawl that they kept saying, oh, we're going to war. Remember that whole thing, Alicia? We're going to war. Well, there was no war. We had no war. And so it just went on a steep decline from there. And it was sad. It was sad. We saw JD Sr. leave the show. And for what? Because it really didn't pan out that it was a big to-do. And no one even talked about it. They just moved on. I'm like, yeah, whatever, it happened. But we do get something out of this season. Good or bad. But we do. We get Kim Dickens returning as Madison Clark, the mom. This is the OG. She is back. This is great. I was excited for it when I first heard about it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Bring her back. We never really saw her die. We know how the show works with certain things. It's TV, so anything can happen. And we saw her at the baseball field, fire, walkers. She was cornered. Yeah, put two and two together. And then at the time we knew that she was leaving, she had Deadwood, because that's where she was from. Well, we all know her from Deadwood. And they were doing the movie and a few other things. She had other projects, so okay, we get it. But when she announced a few months back that she was returning, it was before the mid-season break. We were looking forward to it. I'm like, okay, how are you going to explain it? What's going to happen? Okay. And then as we get closer toward the end of the season, nothing happened. We don't see her. And this whole thing going on with Alicia. And then, again, people, she is gone. Alicia is gone. It's crazy because it's like AMC keeps on their Twitter and the showrunners, everyone has to go and keep pointing out, yes, she is gone from the show. She is moving on. The actress is moving on to other projects. It's like, okay, but the reason why people are confused is because of the way you ended it. You show her on the beach, and not everyone picked up on the cues of her passing out and then waking up and seeing her younger self. Younger self shows her arm. Everything is fine. How do you feel? I feel great. Okay, let's go. Continue the mission. I don't know how people pick that up as like, oh, you see, she's fine. She's still alive. She's going to keep going with the show. No, she is dead. They're just saying after, when you die, those things don't carry over, but she's still on that goal to do good. And that's some of the things, if you believe in hauntings and ghosts and all that, that's one of the things they say, right? Unfinished business. And that these lost souls will continue to try to complete that business. And I think that's what they were trying to show off here. But it still drew all this confusion in the community. It's really divided a lot of people. Like, oh, no, she's coming back. And I also get where they're coming from on one part of it because of what we've seen with Walking Dead proper and Maggie. If you recall, Maggie also had to go do a show. Wasn't sure about that show, so they didn't really kill her off. They just said, she's going to go on a trip. She said she was going to go. She had some things to deal with, find some stuff. Okay, boom. They could have brushed her off right there. She never comes back. She's gone. But no, she did come back, and it was great. It worked out. That's not the case here. Alicia was bit. She was infected. She got sick. She was hallucinating. She was deteriorating. They all knew it was happening. And so there goes that. But anyway, done with that. She's gone. So, yes, Kim Dickens is back. Madison Clark is back. And I was happy. And then, like, what the hell am I watching? She's a baby snatcher. Like, it just, like, it baffles me. It baffles me. There's so many different ways you could reintroduce this character. They made it first seem like, oh, maybe she was captured. We got that whole thing with Padre now. But no, she is working for Padre as a baby snatcher. It's just like, if you were to tell somebody, okay, you're watching a show, like, oh yeah, listen, I'm watching that Walking Dead show. Oh yeah. So how's it going? Oh well, one of their original cast members just came back. It's like, oh yeah, the mom. The mom. That's right. All right, so what's going on? What happened to her? Where did they find her? Well, what's going on is she's a baby snatcher now for this other group. She kidnaps kids, babies, doesn't matter what age. She preferably young, and she calls in, and they meet at a boathouse, and then they take the babies. That's her role. So even if you try to, I'm sure, my point is, if you tell them, they're going to be like, that's not good at all. That's not a great way to reintroduce a beloved character. No. But this is what they did. And then they have Morgan. So Morgan shows up to this island area It doesn't really explain where. They just dock and he's looking for food and then find some people and then they say, hey, what are you doing? They're all covered with their masks still. And what are you doing? And who's this? Well, it's just me and my baby. Me and my baby. We're just looking for food. That's not your kid. How dare you? That's not your kid. You're that kid snatcher. What's going on here? Yeah, that just threw me off completely. First off, there's another group of people. We don't know where he is, where these people are, but he found some people. And their main issue right now is finding a kidnapper. And it turns out that kidnapper is Madison Clark. That didn't do it for me, people. That did not do it for me. I don't know about you guys. I'm sure some eyes were being rolled when they saw this. Because it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because at first I was thinking, well, maybe she escaped from wherever she was. At this point, we didn't know it was Padre. And she's helping out. And she's helping these people find the baby. No. She's the one. She is the one. And that was crazy because she comes out to end up taking Mo. Because they take Mo. Because they're like, all right, we're going to claim this baby. But like, well, this is where the confusion comes in also. Is, all right, you want to accuse Morgan of being the baby snatcher. Fine. Then who are the parents of that baby? Is it someone in your community? Ask around. Do you not recognize this child from your community? I guess you don't. But you automatically assume, yes, has to be. That doesn't work. Just doesn't work unless it's a big city. If it was a big city, big area, like let's say the Commonwealth or something, okay, you know what? You're right. It could be. There's a lot of people. But as we find out later in this episode, from the pregnant woman, it's a small community. It's a small group of people. And Madison has been feeding off of them, taking their kids. She's slowly going in every time and taking a child and calling in the boat, and the boat's taking them back. It's just, it made no sense. It made no sense. Then they say, all right, well, you're not going to tell us anything. They bury him up to his neck in on the beach, and they're like, all right, we're just going to wait for high tide. That'll kill you, and then there goes that. But this is where Madison shows up. She scares him off, does a whole big thing, and takes the baby. She gets him out, but she takes the baby. And maybe I'm mixing it back and forth, but I'm just really frustrated because as I'm watching this episode, and I watched it twice. Because I was like, am I missing something here? Is there something deeper that I'm supposed to be looking at that could make me feel invested? Not in just a show again, but this character again, like I was before, where here's a mom who is with her husband and her kids during a zombie outbreak, and all hell was going on. It was chaos. And she was doing everything she could. Remember, they even joined another side group. It was like there was so many groups that she was bringing her kids to, just trying to keep them alive after the dad had passed away. It was just nuts. But man, this just, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And so eventually, the long story short of all of it is, they did more of the flip-flopping that we saw with Strand, now they're doing with Madison. Because not only do we find out that she's taking the baby, she calls up Padre, we get little clips that we see that they're doing some kind of brainwashing. And the brainwashing is like, all right, listen, you got to do this, you got to help us. And if you do this, you'll get your kids back. We'll help you find your kids. All right. I guess that could be a thing, you know. I mean, our kids are adults. And they're running out there doing their own thing. Why Madison, out of all people, are you trying to brainwash and to become this ultra kidnapper around this community? I don't get it. That I don't know. I mean, meaning, I guess from my point of view, she didn't come off as anyone that had like special skills in that field. She wasn't like a special agent or law enforcement before everything went to kaput. So why her? Unless she was going to come in, maybe they felt, oh, well, look, she's a woman, and she looks nice, and she looks homey, and everything should be fine. These communities will welcome her, and then she can sneak them out. But that's not the case here. Because no one knew what she looked like. So it wasn't like, oh, you're the one doing it. No one knew who she was. So it was just all over the place. And then finding on the radio there was the pregnant woman, and this is the one that Morgan also came across, and he was like, "Listen, I'm here with a baby, and I see you're on the walkie trying to reach out to some people. Maybe we can work together. I'm looking for food." And she even tells her, like, "You gotta get out of here. Don't hang around here. This is no place for you and the baby." And of course, that's when everything goes south for him. But then when he meets up with Madison, and he sees the tattoos of the kids' names on her arms, and he says, "Oh, I know who you are." She's like, "How do you know my name? How do you know me?" I was like, "I know your kids." I was like, "What?" And trying to figure that whole thing out. But then she eventually says, "All right, yeah, the kid's already gone. We can go back to the boathouse. I feel bad now. All right, well, let's go." Oh, well, they already took the kid. So you leave this baby. I don't know how old Mo is. Let's guess. Maybe 1, 2. I think she was crawling the last time we saw her. She's not. So yeah, and I have kids, so I would say, yeah, 2 years old. My kids started walking around there. So this Mo can't walk yet. So let's say around 1 years old. You leave a 1-year-old in a boathouse alone, and then you come back and she's gone. I was like, oh well, I guess they took her. Well, maybe, or she could have just tipped over in the basket because she's panicking and trying to crawl out and falls into the lake there, or the water area, and drowns. It's just, these are things I think about, people. This is what I was thinking about. But whatever, that's done. And so you hear the woman on the walkie-talkie still. So she's like, yeah, we're gonna help this woman out. And she was like, we know a good place, and this is where, at this point, Madison had told Morgan the whole thing about Padre, and that this is where the kid is, but you can't just get your kid back. You have to offer something. So what are you gonna do? And he says, all right, more flip-flopping. Yeah, you know what? I'll do it. Let's bring the pregnant woman over there. So we're giving them a baby. There we go. That makes perfect sense. All right, we'll give them a baby, and then I'm going to get my kid back. And I know, I'm a parent. I'm sure a lot of you people listening, you have kids, people kids. And they just know downright we have morals. This isn't right. But do you really think this is going to work? Do you think, like, once you show up, and it's like, all right, here's this pregnant woman. And by the way, remember that girl, the little baby girl that Madison over here brought over? Can I get that one back? Let's do a trade. You think that's going to work? They have weapons. I no point that I think that was going to work. Maybe he was thinking that they would take him along for the ride and he can go back to Padre. But and as we saw at the end of this episode, they get blindfolded. I mean, Madison doesn't even know where they're going. So then, what's the point? What's going to happen here? What's the end game? You're not going to know where you are, and you're just going to be lost, and we got all these other people, your community, and it's just all over the place. But anyway, they bring this pregnant woman over. She's willing to go. And as they get over there, that's when we find out that there's the other crew, the other dudes that were part of the original community, that the kids were missing kids. They get involved again, and there's a whole big chase scene. Madison and Morgan and the quote-unquote pregnant woman go into a building to hide out. I think it was a mausoleum, actually. It was in the cemetery. Again, it's a small community, I guess, because they didn't go that far, but yet it also seems like the boathouse wasn't that far also. We don't see their community, so that's the other thing that sort of threw me off. I was like, at least if we could see something, just so like a CG structures of some stuff, but whatever. And this is when Madison wants to check out to see how the baby's doing, and she doesn't hear a heartbeat. And it turns out that this is all a ruse. There is no baby. She's not pregnant at all. She was doing this to catch the baby snatchers. And that's when they start talking, and everything comes out. Because she was like, well, Madison's talking about, I need to find my kids. She cares about her kids. Before she said she didn't care about kids, but she does care about her kids. And so the pregnant woman is now telling Morgan, she was telling Morgan to tell her where her kids are, so that way we can get this whole thing over with and get her captured and all that stuff, because the rest of her group are coming. And he just says it straight out. I don't know why he didn't say this earlier, but I guess, it's the story. Whatever. In my mind, and way back, many years ago, I used to write treatments. People know. Those are like scripts and stuff for shows and stuff. And they always tell you have to get to the point. Get to the point, beginning, middle, end. That's it. And then you fill it out. You fill it out. So when I watch certain scenes, the first thing I think of, and I know it probably doesn't make for good TV, and that's probably why I didn't sell any of my treatments, is that I just think of the obvious. If I'm interacting, I see, all right, how do you know my kids? If we go back to that scene, she shows, well, how do you know my kids? Well, I met your kids and so and so, and this and this. And I said, but I mean, you would think she would say, where are they now? And then I would respond, well, they're dead. Or at least definitely one is dead. But no, that happens later on. It happens at this point. And then it brings up, it's like, oh, I can't tell you where your kids are because one is dead a long time ago. And the other one, pretty much dead, but dying, left on a beach. Her own choice, but that's the situation. And Madison breaks down. So there we go. She flips, right? Because she's holding on to him now, and I'm like, all right, we're getting the old Madison back. But it didn't feel genuine. None of this really. It doesn't feel like it was clicking. It's like having a Lego piece and then having a knockoff Lego piece. It just doesn't fit right. It can snap, but it doesn't really connect right. It's not as flush. And that's the thing. She's part of the show. I see her. I'm familiar with her. The casting, the actress, the role. But this reintroduction and this path that they put her on, it doesn't work for me. How many kids has she kidnapped? She had a book. She scratched off a bunch of names. It looks like she's been doing this for a while. It was just a mess. It was just a mess. So once they open up the doors, the guys come out. The woman that faked her pregnancy was like, all right, well, this is what's really going on, and spills the whole thing. And I was like, okay. So then they hand the guy a hood. They hand Morgan a hood. It's like, all right, you join us. We're going to go and we're going to get all our kids back. And he's like, no, we're not going to do it. I'm going to do it my own way. And that also threw me off because I was like, strength in numbers. Didn't we just go through that in the previous few episodes about, build an army, find people, blah, blah, blah. Well, here you go. You got guys that are armed. If anything, you have ideas. You're a great strategist. Come up with something. Like, all right, listen, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to walk over there. We're going to still play the original plan, and we're going to say that we have a pregnant lady, and we're going to do that. And then you ambush them, and then we take their hoods because we understand they also wear hoods. And then no, none of that. I'm going to figure out my own way. All right, so what do? They send him on his way, but they grab Madison, and then now she's, covered to the head over on the beach side. And so it's her turn now. And which brings back a callback to a few seasons back. If you guys recall the Lighthouse season, where they were on a little lighthouse island and they had a fence near the water. And I remember some of the cast members like, why do you have this fence? What's going on? I mean, they're surrounded by water. And he's like, you'll see. And then sure enough, you would just see walkers coming out and just like banging along the fence. It was really cool. They just walking. And we see some of that happening here. But this go around, the walkers that are coming out are that same group. Is that posse that were going to go and attack the Padre people over at the boathouse. So that didn't go well. They all died, and you start seeing them now coming out, and now they're going to feast on Madison's head. But Morgan comes to save the day. There's some back and forth. Morgan goes down. Then when he goes down, he sees that he's fighting with the woman, the fake pregnant woman. She's converted. And so they're fighting it out, and Madison gets up, takes her out. They're up. They're like, all right, this is it. This is what happened. This is sad. We have to figure something out. So they go back to the boathouse. They call in. Boat comes to pick them up. Puts the hood over their heads. Because Morgan says, like, all right, where are we going? Because one of the things that he did have to offer is that no baby with them now, but he does have people coming from his community. He says there's women, children, blah, blah, blah. There's everything, cats and dogs. He was just saying he's got people coming on rafts. Okay, and so they were like, okay, all right, so let's see. Maybe that's something they can use. And they put hoods on their heads, get them in the boat, and that's one of the things when one of the last lines, Morgan asked Madison, is like, where is Padre? She's like, I don't know. Now, the camera does a zoom out, and you see a big ship. So the question now, do you guys think that is Padre, that it's a ship? Or do you think that it's just a smaller air, like meaning that there's multiple versions of Madison out there grabbing kids for their rebuild of a community, which is Padre. And they all board on that ship. That's where they do the screening and the filtering and all that stuff. And then the ones that make it, then that ship goes to the other location of wherever Padre is, if it's land or if it's a bigger ship. Like I'm thinking like Carnival Cruise type ship, which is a floating hotel. You could definitely do it. And I think that'd be cool. I don't think we've seen that yet. If we've seen like a Carnival Cruise ship, which is a base. There's plenty of places to run, hide. You could have all kinds of craziness going on. So that's very possible. I could watch something like that. But man, this, for a season finale, for an episode to reintroduce a beloved character, an OG to the series, didn't work for me. I'm sorry, didn't work for me. This is not the way I wanted Madison Clark to be reintroduced. Not like this. A baby snatcher. That just, you couldn't come up with something else. That's because just think about it. If you close your eyes, you think about it. It's like they said she was taking small children and she didn't care. It's whatever they needed. They needed this. And then with the flip flopping of one minute she didn't care about her kids. She knew they were doing their own thing. But when she finds out that they're dead, then she cared. And she's like, oh, what happened? And it's like, all right, yeah, she snapped out of it. But we saw that happen with the whole thing with with the tower. It was Strand. And all the flip-flopping they did with Strand. And we still don't know the outcome of that. Because Morgan still doesn't know, from what we've seen at least, that he is now part of the floating raft crew. We don't know. He doesn't know. And is he going to accept them? I hope not. I really hope not. But most likely, this is my guess, Strand is going to show up with the group. And somehow, some way, he's going to worm his way into Padre in the hierarchy. Sort of like he did with Jane back in that little town. And next you know, he became in charge of the military. Their group, the arm, remember? He was in charge of all the Rangers. He got promoted. So, I could see that happening again. And then what? Then we'll meet the new bad guy of whoever is in charge of Padre. And we'll see how Strand works from there. I know people are like, oh, well, Strand, you're saying a lot about Strand. What about more? I just don't see it. I see everything always. This show has proven that even though they'll put Morgan on the front box art and on posters and everything, it's not really about him. This whole season's been about Alicia and her journey, but yet they were always showing off Morgan in all these clips. They were really pushing Morgan's story. And that didn't happen. And it was then Strand. Strand has double-crossed these people multiple times. But he gets to stick around. Alicia in her final scene says, I love you. Really? This is the person you love who was throwing civilians off the top of the roof just because he was paranoid about a walkie-talkie? Come on. That was horrible. And we talked about that. You could listen to that other episode. But you already have. So, that's it, people. This was our Season 7 finale. And it just didn't deliver for me. It didn't deliver. The only real question I have is, all right, now we know Padre is not a place you want to go. So Alicia kept looking for Padre, and maybe it's a good thing she never found it. Because it sounds like there are a bunch of bad people there that just want to kidnap kids for some reason. And I know people are like, oh, well, it makes sense. No. It makes sense not just for kids, but then what about the parents? Maybe they had it's all about resources. Maybe you have farmers. Maybe you have engineers. Maybe you have people with certain skills that can help. That's the whole screening process that Strand had for the tower. He didn't just say, we just want to get, you have any small kids so we can grow them and brainwash them and mold them into what we want as a citizen of this community. No, he was asking, what can you offer? So, for some reason, Padre, they don't want that. They just want a bunch of little kids. Can you imagine how many adults do you have and you just have all these kids screaming and crying for their parents all day long? Because you know that's what's happening. It's chaos. It's going to be chaos. So it's going to be interesting to see how they show that come Season 8. And there is a Season 8, people. So that's been confirmed. We'll be back for Season 8. All right, people. So that is pretty much it. I'm going to wrap it up. Go ahead on YouTube, once this is posted on YouTube, put a comment down, let us know what you think of this season finale, and where do you think this show is going. because right now it's not looking good for this one. I really want to focus, hopefully, on the positives, and the positives within the Walking Dead universe. Positives, that is that Isle of the Dead sounds amazing on paper, and the way they describe it with running walkers, we can't call them walkers, I guess, running zombies and that whole thing, and we sort of saw some of that in the series finale of World Beyond, which was a horrible spinoff of a spinoff. I'm glad that's done. But gotta hope for the best for the other ones. And from what I understand, that the Carol and Daryl thing is still happening. Carol's not part of it, but it's still Daryl, so that's happening. So we will see about that. But thanks again, people, for joining us. We will be back, I guess, August for the next one, the Tales of the Dead. Tales of the Walking Dead. Or is it Tales of the Dead? It's one or the other. But we'll be back for that August. So have a good summer. And go ahead and check us out over at the Koalition on YouTube. Thanks again for everybody over on iTunes and Spotify. We see the numbers, we see the views. I like to show these off to some people that keep telling me that Walking Dead is dead. It is not dead. So remember, people, go and look at the flowers. Peace.